Hey friends, welcome to another video. Today we're painting. I got my acrylic paints and supplies. I haven't used these in ages. I don't know what kind of quality they're gonna be, but we're gonna try and see. In my previous video, we sculpted all these pumpkins and sea turtles in polymer clay, and now we're gonna paint them. So I'm gonna start with just giving them a nice kind of vibrant base, and then I'm gonna let that dry. We'll get on with some other stuff and we'll make progress. Hopefully it'll be fun. Hello friends, and welcome to this little painting segment. In this video, I wanted to show you how I personally go about painting polymer clay creations, and specifically the types of paints and materials that I use. I think there can be a very heavy focus sometimes on having the best supplies, the best types of paints, most marketed ones, the ones we see a lot of influencers use. I'm certainly guilty of that as well, of kind of almost trying to overthink it a little bit, but I think if you want to create something, the most important thing to do is just try it and go for it. You'll see at the end of the video, this experiment that I was doing here did not exactly go to plan, but I had a lot of fun doing it. The issues I had nothing to do with the types of materials I'm recommending here. It had nothing to do with my paints, nothing to do with my varnishes. The issues we will talk about later were caused in a different video. In terms of paint brands, I love Daler-Rowney and I love Liquitex. Those are two of my favorite brands. I've used them since I started training in painting when I was in high school, which was probably the first time I kind of picked up heavy paint. But in this video you also see me using Pebeo paints, which are a lot cheaper, but they still work really nicely. And if you enjoy having a very transparent look to your clay pieces, like if you like working with a lot of gradients, then Pebeos are really good because you don't have to water them out. They're basically already watered out, and they give you a lot of flexibility. They dry very quickly, and I enjoy working with them. I believe I bought them in 2018. I had just graduated uni about a year ago, and I'd started my small business. I was still freelancing and money was tight. So I bought those paints, and acrylic painting was not my predominant medium at that time in my career, and so I didn't really feel like investing a huge amount of money into acrylic paints before knowing if it was something I really wanted to get back into. So I went with a cheaper kind. I went with the Pebeo ones, and honestly, I bought them in 2018. It is 2024 now. I opened those tubes and they were still going strong, and they had been used before years ago. It's not like they were new tubes that were never opened. In terms of my technique for painting polymer clay, I always start by coating my entire piece in just one block color. So I put a lot of paint on the paintbrush, and then I kind of stick all the paint into all the different crevices, and then I work the paint out so that it's nice and thin. And that is just how I like to coat my pieces. You could also do this as a gradient if you wanted to, but I went with just a block color for these ones. A lot of people will coat theirs in white, and that is very good if you want a nice and light aesthetic at the end. I actually prefer starting with my shadows for acrylics. I try to think, like, what is a nice shadow color of a pumpkin? If the main pumpkin is orange, what would the shadow be? And so I went with a kind of muted red, and that worked really nice for me when painting these pieces. My pieces had a lot of crevices, so I did start by loading my paintbrush with quite a heavy load of paint, and I made sure to spread that quite thinly. I put a lot of paint on my paintbrush when I do the first coat, but I actually put a very thin layer on the sculpt itself. Even with the Pebeo paints, I only had to do one coat, and cheap and thin paints are kind of ideal for this because you don't want your undercoat to be too thick. If you add too much paint onto a piece, you could risk it flaking later. So you want to make sure that you stay nice and thin in terms of the layer of paint you put on. And remember, even though my pieces had a bit of, it wasn't a perfect coat in any way, you could still see marks and textures and various levels of transparency. It didn't really matter because I knew that I was going to put multiple layers of paint on top of this coat again. So I just wanted to make sure that it was nice and thin and that it wouldn't disrupt my workflow later on in the project. Finished the base coating for all the different sculpts. I actually thought it was going to take a lot longer to dry. I haven't worked with acrylics in a while, so it was cool to see that actually it's drying really quickly. That means I don't have to take a break from my painting station. I can just hang out there, do some painting, and kind of batch all of my sculpts together. So that's been really fun. I've mixed up a nice orange. It took me a while to get the orange right, but I've mixed it up now, and I'm gonna start painting some of the pumpkins and also some of the capybaras and a couple of the sea turtles as well. Let's do it. In terms of my technique for painting polymer clay, I use acrylic paint specifically, and I advise against using gouache paint or acrylic gouache because it can wash away when you start to add your varnish. Or if you don't add varnish, then there's always a risk of, say, customers spilling something on it or the color washing away at a different point in time. You want to say hi to the camera? No? Yeah? Is it time to stop working today? This is the state of the desk at the moment. This is how far I got. I'm loving this color palette. To be honest, it looks a lot better on camera than it does in real life, but we're gonna go with it. And that is a wrap for today. So shiny, but it's okay, it's the end of the day. I was working with these different paints, so I haven't bought new acrylics in a while. These are from 2018, I think, and they're still going strong. They're really good. The brands I'm using are, there's Pebeo, and then Daler-Rowney. Daler-Rowney is actually one of my favorite acrylics brand, along with Liquitex, which is my absolute favorite. I don't have any Liquitex paints at the moment, but I think I'm gonna have to buy some because they are my absolute favorite. I like these Pebeo ones as well, but I feel like they are thin, like they don't cover a lot. So for the sculpts I have right now, I've had to do 3 or 4 different coats and they're still not entirely covered. And I don't mind if you can see a bit of texture. That's the whole point of using a thin acrylic, which is what I bought, to be fair. Can't blame them for that, that's entirely on me. But in the future, once my enormous tubes of acrylic run out, I will definitely be buying some thicker ones. Anyhow, let me show you how far we got. These are the gourd pumpkins. Got a nice light green on there. Oh, and I'll show you the back as well. The back is pretty. Or the front actually. You can't even see the difference, I don't think. I was trying to mix a brown, and I was really struggling to get it like a dark brown. I don't know why. It's a bit embarrassing, to be honest. This brown turned out alright. I would have still liked for it to be like darker, but I can mix a slightly darker one tomorrow and just layer on top. That's alright, that's alright. So I made 2 of the green ones, and then I've got only 2 orange ones as well. A little bit of a shocker, but it's alright. 2 orange ones. And then I ended up doing 4 in this type of color palette. A pale beige body with orange accents and orange foliage, and a brown stem, which again is not looking very brown at the moment. We still got more work to do. I need to do the eyes, I still need to decorate all the foliage, but we're getting somewhere. And let me show you the turtles, because they are definitely work in progress at the moment. We got the fly agaric mushroom one. We got the large pumpkin one, which is my favorite. Being careful with this one because it's freshly painted. Oh yeah, got the daisy one, which again is still very wet. Okay, this one's got a funny thing because on one side it's all green on the body and shell, but if you turn it around, I left a small area of the orange red undercoat. I just thought that was fun. Next up, I got the other mushroom one, and I have not decided what I'm going to do with this one yet in terms of colors. So I just gave it a pale wash, and I left a little bit of the front of the head with the red speckle because I thought that was nice, just having a little bit of difference in skin color. Thought that was really cute. My plan was to do it as a glow-in-the-dark green mushroom, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do a chanterelle, but then it's not really a chanterelle mushroom shape. Maybe I'll go with the röyksopp that I mentioned in the last one. Then you have a very classic a very classic pumpkin one. I really like this orange. It took absolutely ages to mix together. It was painfully obvious to me that I have not worked with physical paints in a long time, and it is so different mixing physical colors of paint and mixing digital ones. So I was struggling a bit, but we're getting back to it. Next one, also one of my favorites. This one has a darker body. It's got a light brown head and body under here, and then an orange shell. Again, I would like this body to be a bit darker, but I'm gonna try tomorrow and see if I can get that done. This one, don't know what I'm doing with it. I love it, and I originally meant to give it an almost classic coral reef look, but I'm really loving the color palette that we got going as well. So I don't know, maybe I'll make it green. I also started the capybaras, so I'm doing 4 different sets. I only have 4 pairs of capybara earrings, so if you do want to pick some up, make sure you're fast in the shop update, because I only have 4 pairs. Not that they won't be back ever, but you know what I mean. This one has a green undercoat, and it's gonna be a zombie capybara. And we got one with an orange undercoat. It's gonna be a pumpkin capybara. This red one, I haven't really painted much on, I just gave it the base coat. This one is gonna be a fly agaric capybara, so a mushroom one. I'm really excited to see how they turn out. They will be my first handmade earrings, so that will be really exciting. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap up for tonight and I'll see you tomorrow. Hey friends! Okay, so we have, let me show you, we're making progress. The others are drying, they are looking really cute. I'm having so much fun painting these, it's my favorite part of it. It does take ages though. Although as I mentioned yesterday, I think if I just had some thicker acrylics, then the process would definitely be faster. So once I finish the ones I have, I'll be investing in some new ones. But at the moment I have so many of these ones, so I'm gonna finish them before I put in anything else. But yeah, they're looking good. I'm gonna finish these up now, let them dry, and then I'm gonna go in with some gold paint, which is one of my favorites to work with, and yeah, it's just so satisfying to paint. Cleaning up my desk from all the painting, and I wanted to show you how I store my paint palette. So it's currently looking like this, and at some point I'm gonna have to clean it out because this is not a single-use thing. It's like a heavy plastic. It's not ceramic, but it is a heavy plastic one. I really like the colors that are in it at the moment, and I'm thinking I might use them for some illustrations in my sketchbook later. I don't know if I will, but I think because the colors are custom mixed and they look so pretty at the moment, I am going to save them for now, because they'll be good for a couple more days. And to do that, I'm just using a Ziploc bag from IKEA, or any kind of Ziploc bag. You can use these over and over and over and over. Slide it in, pop it on, and there you go. Our colors are nice and protected. I think I went a bit overboard, because the first few times I mixed the colors for my sculptures, I mixed too little and then I had to remix them again. They didn't turn out quite the same, which in the end actually worked out quite nicely. But I think after running out a few times I went a bit overboard, I mixed a lot of it, and now I have a whole bunch of paint back. And I don't want to waste it, so I'm gonna keep it in this little Ziploc bag, and hopefully we'll do some sketchbook drawing in a future video. We're changing the angle, that makes everything more interesting. Here is the gold paint that we're going to be using. I've never actually used this one before, and I'm really excited. It came highly recommended. The guys at the miniature modeling shop that I went to highly recommended it. They said it is their favorite, and the idea is that you will not have to add more than one layer, and it's supposed to kind of even itself out and harden nice and thick. To be honest, for jewelry, this is probably the perfect thing. I'm always in two minds about painting, because on the one hand, I want the colors that harden as like one layer and it's nice and it almost looks factory made. I love that. But then I also love this. Like the tubes I showed you before, these ones, the Pebeo ones, they were something like £1 or £2 when I bought them back in 2018. They might be 3 or 4 now, but that's still a really good deal for such a big tube. Whereas this one, I think it was 4 for the tiny bottle, but it saves you time if you want that kind of non-translucent, opaque look. I am gonna use a mix of the two because I love mixing materials, so we are gonna add a bit of golden details on our models. Before we paint, let's have a bit of a show and tell. This one of our orange pumpkins. We got another orange pumpkin, a bit shorter than the first. I got 2 pale wash pumpkins with orange foliage. This is one. And the other one, very similar. This one's a bit bigger, and I made the polyps pink, or like a strong red. It's got a little bit of decor here already. Then we got another 2 pale washed ones, but they have green foliage instead. This one has a stem in the back, a long curly one. And finally, I have 2 green pumpkins. One with green foliage as well. And the next one has a short stem. And that was all the pumpkins. Next up we have the turtles, and I haven't assembled them yet, but we are getting there. First up we have our brown pumpkin turtle. I absolutely love this one. Our second pumpkin one, really love this one too. And our third and final pumpkin one. I did one in this vibrant green, and I kept the red as eyes, so this one doesn't actually need eye painting. Then we have more of a classic mushroom one. Lots of polka dots. By the way, I have been toying with the idea of doing tutorials for these different pumpkins and things, and the turtles. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. I'm more than happy to make one. And then we got another really cool one, the daisy one. The daisy turtle. And our final turtle, this one is kind of a spooky season autumnal wreath. I feel like this turtle has been our experimental turtle throughout this entire process. Capybaras are a bit of a work in progress. I'm a little bit lost with them, so I might take a break from them and get back to it tomorrow. By the way, if you saw my last clay video, I have not done anything yet with the manta rays. They are still a work in progress. They're very solid. Hello friends, and welcome to another voiceover. In this clip we're going to be using Model Color Gold paint. I loved working with this paint. When you use it just as it comes from the bottle, it is really thick and really opaque. You never have to add a second coat to it at all. It just really covers everything. It was so nice to work with. I think this paint is perfect for jewelry, and it was so easy to add like little details around on this pumpkin turtle. I really loved working with it. However, I had gotten a bit used to the more transparent look, so for my second pumpkin turtle I actually tried watering out the gold a little bit. And I mostly did that for the crevices, like in the pumpkins and on this big vine that you see here as well. I just felt like something a little bit more transparent and mixed in, whereas with these dots and later the details on the pumpkins, on the frog pumpkins, and also the turtle eyes themselves and the freckles on their heads and the details on the flippers, I did not mix it out at all. I just kept the kind of nice and opaque color as it was in the bottle. You do not need a lot of this paint, so even though the bottle is tiny, it will last you for a very long time. It's definitely my new favorite brand of special effect paints, along with the Lumiere line, which I also really like. I didn't use that for this collection, but I really like that as well. But Model Color is definitely a type of paint that I will be investing in more in the future as my older colors are used up, and I am excited to use it in future videos. And that's it for today. All finished up with the painting. I've tidied up the packing station, so it's all set for tomorrow. I am going to varnish the clay pieces tomorrow before we can finally assemble these turtles. They're taking ages, but it's gonna be worth it. So tomorrow we're gonna varnish all the pieces, and we will also be doing a bit of product photography for the shop update, so that will be good. Good morning. It is such a gloomy day today. The rain is pouring down, our ceiling is kind of leaking a little bit, and yeah, nice and gloomy lighting. I took Klaus for a walk today as well, and we got soaked, so I had to change, but we're all good now, And we got a Comfort pumpkin spice. So it's a good day overall, I think. I'm gonna start the day. It is a little bit later today than I would like it to be, 8:55, which is a bit later than I would like it to be. Usually by this time I've had quite a bit of things done already, but we're getting a late start. It's okay. Klaus is playing with his toy down there as well. He's utterly adorable. I can't remember if I already said or not, but if you saw my previous video, I mentioned that I love the Sculpey oven bake adhesive for polymer clay. It is my favorite, it is so strong and very reliable, so I highly recommend that. And for varnishing, I also prefer their products. So I have this satin glaze, which is my absolute favorite for varnishing polymer clay creations. I know a lot of people use UV resin, and UV resin is good. It is good. It's an aesthetic, and you have to kind of decide if that goes with your art style or not. And for me, I feel like it doesn't. I feel like mine is a bit more, it needs a thinner coating, and that's when this one comes in handy. And I'm only really able to get away with using this because I already used the oven hardening adhesive when I baked my pieces. So combining these instead of using UV resin is a very good alternative, especially if you don't like the fumes and the smells, and I can't stand the smell of UV resin. So that's another thing. Both are good choices. It's entirely up to you. I like to lower the amount of toxins in my home as well, because I work from home and you gotta keep that in mind. This is your living space. Oh, phone call. I'm gonna get started. All done with the varnishing. Oh, it is, you know what, it's so satisfying, and I love the Sculpey varnish. It's definitely my favorite varnish for polymer clay. I don't know if I said, but they do a matte and a gloss version, and then they do the satin version. I use the satin one because, I'm sorry, my S's are a bit strong today, but I use the satin one because I really love the kind of velvet-like touch in the finished product. I've been using it for years as well, and I got a sea turtle sculpture out by my window, and I varnished it in 2021, and it has no yellowing whatsoever, and I'm so happy about that because I've tried so many different varnish brands, and a lot of the time they just yellow after like 3 or 4 years. But this Sculpey one has never yellowed for me, and I'm so happy about that. It's so weird in here today. It feels echoey, but the lighting is really nice at the moment, so I'm going to take advantage of that and take some product photos, and then I'm going to do some drawing. Finished painting and varnishing everything, and I think they're looking pretty cute. We did run into some sad and unfortunate issues though, and I think that really ties into this video, so I wanted to tell you about it. I unfortunately ended up breaking quite a few of the turtles, and I was so confused about this because I've never had this issue with clay before. So I've been going back and forth, like, what is different this time? What is it that I'm using now that I haven't used before? And I realized the problem goes way back from before this video started, because the problem happened in my previous sculpting video. If you saw that video, you might remember me saying, this is the clay we're gonna use later. It is original Sculpey clay, which is a bit softer than what I usually go with. I used a different clay. I used a soft clay, and I thought it would be easier to manipulate, but what I didn't take into account was that it is also less resilient. I usually use Sculpey Firm or Sculpey Translucent Medium Firm, and those are so resilient. You can drop your stuff on the ground and it's fine. If you baked it correctly, that piece will stay whole. The pumpkin frogs that we painted, they were actually sculpted in Sculpey clay, which is very strong and durable. But then when I was painting the turtles, I don't know, the weight is different, and I was a little bit worried, but I thought, you know what, no. I've used polymer clay many times before, it's gonna be fine. But then I started assembling them and a few pieces broke, and luckily I'd made a few spare by total accident. But then today, after I'd assembled everything, I tried super gluing some fabric onto the bellies of the turtles to kind of hide the stitching, and a lot of the flippers got destroyed, which is really sad because I worked really hard on them. But it is a learning experience, and I did want this video to be a learning experience, so I suppose that is a good comfort. Sometimes that's how it goes. And you know what I find so interesting? Out of all of the turtles we sculpted, the one that turned out the best was the one that I was almost ready to give up on at the start, and that is the non-jointed spooky coral reef one. I think because this one is one solid piece, it didn't have to go through all the struggles that the others did. And as a result of that, this is a perfectly fine piece to make with the type of clay that I used. Unfortunately, for the jointed ones, you will need a stronger clay. I would recommend Sculpey clay, Sculpey firm, or Sculpey semi-firm. For my original sea turtle prototype, I used Fimo Effect. No, I didn't. For my original sea turtle prototype, I used Sculpey translucent clay. And this one I had no issues whatsoever getting the flippers tied up and things. Anyhow, I think they look sweet and cute together. But I will most definitely be sculpting with Sculpey translucent clay in the future. That is my favorite. I have used Sculpey firm as well. That is a very good clay, very good clay. But it's a bit too firm for my liking. Whereas the translucent one it's kind of a good and perfect in between. It is soft enough to manipulate and get nice details into without ruining your wrists. And it's still highly durable. This one has been in moving boxes since 2022. Been dangling around in my bag, it's been dropped on the floor countless times, and it is still perfect. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found my tips and recommendations useful. I hope maybe the video inspired you to create or to pursue any hobbies of your own. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!